Hello and welcome to Elvenhome and to this edition, which sees the completion of a task that I set myself almost 12 months ago. So let's go straight on to see the work of completing the control panel. What you can see in front of you is the work that was completed yesterday with the help of Rob, who came up once again. Just incredibly helpful. I mean, as much watching him work and the way he went about things as much as the actual information that he imparted. And what we managed to do yesterday was get the first harness rigged up, which is this one, which controls a set of 4 points, to test all the individual point indicator units which are on the back here. And I'll show you a photograph here of what they all look like. They all work, they're all doing what they're supposed to do. These ones have been tested on the layout with the switches, and that has enabled us also, which is what all these wires are. The LEDs have all gone in. There is much more wire here than I will actually need, because I don't know the exact length that I'll need, so they've all been measured for the maximum length. And as I've said, I think in the last video, anything that I don't need will be chopped off and thrown away. So what I'm about to do is to move on to the next 3 switches, which I started work on doing, beginning to put the harness together for those. And then I thought I really must video some of this before I realise I've got to the end and haven't shown you as we're going along. So a lot has been achieved in yesterday. And I will now slowly work my way through. I'll come back before I completely finish, because once I've got these ones on and tested, and perhaps another block as well, just to show you how things are going, because as I do that, LEDs will be fitted in, and so some of this wire will start disappearing and the whole thing really will start taking a bit more shape. So this is the what is the day today, 1st of November. And we'll see how long it takes me before I come back to you and show you the next tranche of work that's been completed. I've just remembered that I promised in the last segment of the video that I would come back when I was about halfway through. So far, you're viewing this in the same way as the board, which I'm going to show in a minute. So of course it's upside down, and that's why this is all reversed. So far, I have now wired up all the way down here to point 2, and from point 3 all the way up to point 10. Point 23 is the last one I'll do, because it will be right in the, I'll show you in a minute, right in the top corner. So what I'm just about to start work on now is the points 11 to 14. So that goes over the double slip to the branch. Then I will do 15, 16, 17 and 18, and then I will do 19, which is a crossover. And I'll talk you through in just a minute how one switch is wired in, and it's the same over and over again. So once I've told you one, it's exactly the same thereafter. So I'll just rearrange the camera so you can see where we've got to. Just to remind you, we're looking at the top end of the panel as it will sit up against the layout, and these will all go into the male side of these terminal blocks. And what I'm going to do is just talk you through, because it's the easiest one to point at, which isn't covered by other wires, is this one here, which is point number 10. And the process starts by me fitting on the spade connectors, making sure they're really snugly put down, and bringing the wire around to roughly where I think it's going to go into these terminal blocks. What I tend to do so far have been bringing all the wires together for the motor that the indicator unit that I'm wiring in, because the points that I've been doing have all been at the top of the board, so they're grouped close together, because that allows me then to have a bunch of wires that I can measure up and clip them all off, so I know that they're enough play but not too much for when these go and fit on the side of the layout. I then separately have been cutting 12-inch pieces of wire, 12-inch pieces of wire, and that will go from the indicator unit and is joined here. My original intention had been to have 2 wires coming out of the switch, one going to this motor and one coming here. But one of the things Rob suggested to me was that that actually it would be easier and neater to join them at this end, because it doesn't matter where they're joined, so long as this indicator unit can detect the throwing of the switch. And that has actually been a lot more straightforward than I would have had wires going everywhere, and has allowed this idea of putting together these trusses essentially of wires. That I think I may have cut that one too long, but we'll see. I mean, it would be a pain to have to cut it down, but if I have to, it doesn't take long to do. All of these have been tested on the layout when I've been testing the lights, because after I complete each block of each complete indicator unit, then it gets plugged in and each one is tested individually, and that allows me both to see whether they're working and also to adjust to make sure that the points throw in the way I want them to when I press the switch down, and the right lights are showing for the road that's been set. And it is required, on the whole, it's been pretty good. But if the points are not throwing the right way, then I just switch the spade connectors around. If the lights are not showing the right way, and I'll show you those in a minute, then I just switch around the way in which these go into each of these terminal blocks at this end. So I bring the wires together at the terminal block, and again I wait until I've got a good number so that I can get the same length for all the wires that are going to be going from here to here, because they're traveling the same distance. Once that's done, I can cut these off and put the ferrules on. And as I said, if you haven't been using ferrules, you must go and do it. This is just so much easier than fiddling around with twisted bare ends of wire. Each of the switches, the wires coming out of the switches, has their number on them, and you see my little box of numbers. That's invaluable. I mean, absolutely invaluable. And similarly, you will find that other wires, the wires that go up into here, of course they're paired, and one pair has the number on, so you can trace everything back in the event you need to get to and amend one of the a switch or a set of LEDs. So once I've got this bit done, I then turn my attention, and what I've been tending to do is get it all wired up from this side before I turn my attention to where the to wiring in the LEDs. The LEDs, this one is 23, and the reason that's on its own and will be done at the end is that effectively the male side of the terminal block is about here. Oh no, it's about here where this goes together. So this is going to have the shortest distance to travel, and this will be wired into this motor indicator unit. So I'll do that one as the very last one. But you can see here the wires from the 2 LEDs all waiting to be done. And what I do is take a red from one of them, an orange from one of them, and a black from the other to pair together, and that is then wired into the indicator unit. And these two here, for example, are the ones for number 10 for here. So it's coming off of the LEDs, which you can just sort of see are sat either side of this switch. And when I wire them in and test them, if the lights are not going in the right way, then I swap over those 2 terminals, and that sorts the problem. And it's a case of essentially doing that over and over again, and that's where I've got myself here. Now, so far, all of these yellow and red wires are at this side of the board, pretty much. I think there's 1 or 2 that are tucked a bit further down. the next load of wiring, they're all going to be coming up from underneath, and the LEDs actually are going to be more likely coming up from this side. But again, all the LEDs, I wait until I'm pretty much sure. I bring them all here so that these similarly are cut off at the same point, and that's allowing me, you can see part of it here, there's a truss pulling together quite a number of LEDs, not least to try to stop any yanking going on as things move around. But it does mean you get these nice sets of wire which are quite stiff. Now that can be a problem if they're too stiff to be able to bend them in where I need to put them, but they're not. But it is helping keep them all together, and I mean, I can see how much cleaner this is now because all of these have been wired in. And the same will be true under here. There's still lots of bunches of wires from the LEDs. So it's just a case of rinse and repeat. Switch to here, attach some wire here, cut off so you've got the right length, put those in, wire in your LEDs. Once I've finished a group of 4, onto the layout and test. And everything I've done so far has worked, and I'm saying nothing else. So that's where I've got to. I've got 10 more switches to be wired in with the associated LEDs, and I will come back at some suitable point. I'll decide what that is because I'm not going to make any predictions, but it's just a case of getting the last 10 wired in and then making sure that this obviously marries up with the top. I was worried at one point because it was looking really quite tricky to get this to fit on the top with all the wire in it, but it was just the amount of excess wire on the LEDs, and the more that I've been wiring things in, the closer this is getting. And you can see I can actually now line that up there pretty much, and I couldn't do that at all a little while ago. So I'm really confident that once I've got all this done, I know there's enough space there. It's just making sure that I route wires and things to enable that to happen. And then, well, then we might actually get it on the layout. But as I said, I'll come back at what I consider to be a suitable point. Today is the 7th of November, and this morning I finished off the last motors, indicator units, and tested and adjusted the switches and LEDs as necessary. Not all of them needed change, I'm pleased to say, and I have now fitted the front panel onto the frame. So if I turn this around, oh, just make sure that is visible. There is the completed front panel. When I tested after I screwed it on, I just tested that in screwing it on I hadn't dislodged anything. And all the LED lit up. I had a good look underneath, and one switch had thrown one of the spade connectors. Fortunately, it was easy to get to, so that's gone back on. So the next big thing is for this to go on the layout and be fitted in and make sure everything works. Now, before I do that, I need to refit the works, the low relief works building. So with a bit of luck, I might get this on tomorrow. And the next time you see this, I hope it will be in situ and lit. The other thing I want to do is just get back to looking at the creamery. I think what I'll probably do is intersperse, I haven't recorded it yet, a look at the creamery, which I hope to get to start work on Monday, which should give me time enough to get a little bit done and it included in this video. So I'll speak to you again in the future, and then you can see what this looks like when it's on the layout. Right at the end of the last video, I spoke about building a creamery to go into the siding next to the works as part of a row of buildings that will close off the front of the layout. And I posed a question: should I go for a design, because I want to double the size of the creamery from the scale scenes kit, should I go for option A, which was this one, or, which had occurred to me as I was filming the segment, an option B, because I actually have 12 windows and I would obviously use the 12 windows right across the top. And the majority of people that came back seemed to favour option B. Some liked option A, they preferred that for its balance. And once I got the wiring out the way and the thing on the layout, the control panel on the layout, I had some brain space to come back and start looking at the design. And option B was definitely my preferred one, because I liked I preferred the length in that way, but I could see what people were saying about the balance of having the lower sections there with a central raised area. So a thought occurred to me as I was cutting up bits of paper and moving them around that we would go with option C. Haha! Gosh, I hadn't realised this was quite so big. You're going to have to put up with this being a little a little off camera. Let's say oh, it's not too bad. There we go. That's better. Put that there. So essentially what I have done, of course, as a basic, is to take these two halves and fill in the gap. In fact, it's slightly more than that, because it's actually a row of the central two, these two windows, being extended along until it reaches the end here, because I've also changed the doors so that there's the double folded doors all the way along here until I get to here, where I've pasted over, it's quite hard to see here, but I've pasted over the single door. If you have a look at one of these, you'll see that there is a single door here, which is access to the plant room, and the two doors for getting into the center. So essentially I've taken these two doors and extended them all the way across, but on this side there is a door entry for the plant room. I'm going to leave access to the railway to the line side at each end, because I think you might actually need to do that. And then there would be a row of tanks sitting in here, or wagons being loaded from the plant. Now earlier today I put this on the layout just to see what it would look like in terms of space. Of course, it's quite tricky, as you'll see from this image. What you've got is a fairly, paper, so you're not getting the three-dimensional view of it really. But I think this will do, and I can see how I would, using the kit as a template, because I'm not going to build the scale scenes kit. This is not going to be a paper kit, but I will be able to use this as a template once I cut all the windows out for whatever I choose to use to build it. I think the overall back will be 3mm ply, so that will give me the backing, and probably 2mm card for the front. But again, I'll see, because it may be that I'm making a frame for all of this to go in, and I need to think about that. So that's what I'm going to be turning my attention to in the next couple of weeks. And by the time you see the next video, I hope to have actually got on and worked out how I'm going to build the front frame, whether it's just going to be 2mm card cut out, or whether I might actually construct it as a bit like the way I built the engine shed. Let's go back and see what happened when the control panel was placed onto the layout. Well, it's now the 12th, Wednesday the 12th of November. This has been on here since Saturday. I left it a few days, one to make sure that it did keep coming on when I switched on each day, but also to give me a bit of time just to check that all the switches and all the LEDs were set in the correct way. I had one or two LEDs that weren't set in the correct way, and it was actually fairly straightforward to make those amendments without having to remove the whole panel. I did, however, after I'd made one of the amendments, I came back and did something else, and this switch was not causing anything to happen. The lights weren't changing, certainly the points weren't changing. So I did in fact have to remove entirely this whole panel. I had to unplug everything. It proved really easy to do. Partly that is, and I don't think I mentioned it in the previous section, my original intention was to fit the female side of the terminal blocks in their full block, so a block of 6. I very quickly realized, long before I'd wired anything up, that that was incredibly hard to do. And after I'd put one or two of them in and was trying to fit them on, I think it was a couple over here, I thought this is not going to work once I've got everything with all the wires trussed into them, because it makes them incredibly stiff and hard to maneuver. So I cut them so they were all individual terminal blocks, and that made life so much simpler in fitting them all together and taking them off. So I know that if I need to, I can remove the whole of this panel. It takes me about 3 or 4 minutes to do that, because it has to be done obviously gently. The other thing that you'll notice is that I've, instead of the bare boards there, these are Sankey Scenics O-gauge metal signs. I have put some brick card behind, which has been painted. I'll put a picture up here of where I was working on it. And then I used both their set 1 and set 2 and had great fun just playing with the different sizes and adverts to completely fill this side, and I'm really pleased with the effect. I like the look, which is reminiscent, I think, more of the 1920s probably than a bit later when they started to space things out. This has given me what I wanted at the top, and it's given me the panel. It was rather strange when I got this on. I sort of thought, well, what do I do now? Because I've lived with this for so long, and then I did a lot of work last week. So I think what we do before we bring the video to an end, I will set up and have a running session. It won't be going all over points and things because the layout needs a good clean. Some of these points, well, most of them actually have not moved apart from being the odd test, and I certainly haven't had trains run over them. So I can see quite a lot of cleaning being needed before I dare try and run anything over them. It works as you want it to do. I mean, I'll give you a quick, you can see. Then the point has changed, and when I put it back, the point has moved back and it's shown itself to go to so it can go up to the coal stage. And it's true with all of them. They all work, thank goodness. So let's get some trains running, and then we'll come back to close the video. I thought I would start this section after the running session, which was great fun to do after having so long when I couldn't run any trains, by letting a Dapol A4 go by, which is the one that I'd sound fitted. I've turned the sound off so you can hear or not hear the locomotives. Ian at Ian's Engage did a really fair and comprehensive review of the Dapol A4 and one of the latest incarnations of the A4 that they've put out, Sir Nigel Gresley in BR Express Blue. And unfortunately, Dapol, they do have problems with quality control. I've been very lucky with my locomotives. They, you know, I touch wood. They behave very well for me. But they do have their problems, not least how noisy they are. Now with the Seagull, which is running around in front of you, I changed the motor when I fitted sound to it. And I went over to a Tramfabriek coreless motor, and the difference in sound is extraordinary. And it's still being obviously driven by the drive shaft connecting the tender to the gearing in the locomotive. But it does just show you the difference, although it does have to be said, of course, you shouldn't have to buy a locomotive at around £180 and then immediately spend another 25 or so on a new motor to make it run quietly. Seagull is pulling a rake of Thompson coaches, the ones that Farish put out some time ago, which are just beautiful in design. And the 5MT, the BR standard 5MT at the back, is pulling a rake of LMS coaches, because the 5MT is of course based largely on the LMS Black 5. So that really brings me pretty much to the close of this episode, thank goodness. Oh, one thing which is in front of you, I keep forgetting and nearly did again. If the future is ferrules, very close to it are these things, which are Velcro cable ties. Well, I'm sure you've seen Velcro. These are brilliant. You may have seen if you look at earlier parts in the video, you will have seen I've used quite a few of the blue ones to bind wire together. And the great value of them, of course, is you can undo them and do them back up again as you need. In the description to this video, I have put a list of everything I could remember that I bought in order to do all of this. And they are listed there. I think I got them from Amazon. The list is, they're all where I bought them from. They're not, it's not affiliate links. So you may be able to buy them cheaper elsewhere, and I would definitely have a look around, because it's perfectly possible that some of them are available cheaper, possibly on eBay, than I paid for them. But the link you have is from where I ordered the bits and pieces that I bought. That brings the episode to an end. And if you've got any comments, I'd love to hear your comments, particularly on the creamery, because I'll live with the mock-up in place for a few days just to make sure I'm content before I start building anything. And the creamery, I think, will be the next thing that I'm really focusing on. I've also got to build a part here, I think you can see me, yes you can, to hide in the wires that are coming out the side here, which is just going to be the front of the works. But I want to get on with the creamery first. And after what has been an awful long time, because I think it was 20th of December last year that I started saying I'm going to do the control panel. And here we are now. This episode's going out on the 14th of November, I think. Almost a year later, and it's finally done. Oh, thank goodness. So with that, I'll leave you and speak to you again in a fortnight's time. But until I speak to you again, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.